In the early morning twilight, when a light mist still embraced the rolling hills of Washington state, Ethan Coldwell, a man whose eyes reflected both the hardships of a long life and an undying spark of hope, stepped out onto the veranda of the old mansion at the heart of his family farm. Coldwell's legacy, as the farm was known, sprawled over 120 acres of fertile land. It was not merely a means of sustenance but a living museum, where every curve of the fields and every ancient tree seemed to hold the secrets and memories of ancestors. Ethan recalled the stories his father and grandfather used to tell on cold evenings by the fireplace. In those tales, the elders, voices filled with pride and a tinge of sorrow, spoke of how his great-grandfather, Edmund Coldwell, had arrived here almost a century ago to establish this homestead, pouring a piece of his soul into every acre of the land. In those days, before modern technology and fast highways, every drop of sweat shed in the fields was a testament to dedication and love for the land. That is why the old barn, built by Edmund's own hands, had always meant more to Ethan than a mere storage space for the harvest and tools. It was a symbol of endurance, memory, and the traditions passed down through the generations. Every morning began with a ritual. Clad in his well-worn work clothes, Ethan would step outside to savor the cool morning air infused with the scents of pine and damp earth. He would slowly walk around the perimeter of the farm, greeting the sunrise with quiet reverence for nature. Within him mixed feelings of joy for continuing the family tradition and a nagging worry that, as times changed, the world might be slipping away from its simple truths. A special place in his heart was reserved for the old barn, tucked on the edge of the farm, almost hidden against a mighty oak, a tree that, as local lore had it, had witnessed all the joys and sorrows of the family's history. The wooden walls of the barn, layered with time and memories, creaked with even the slightest gust of wind, as if yearning to recount stories of bygone days when destinies were decided and fateful choices made. Ethan often lingered before the building, studying every crack in the wood, every trace left by time, and he couldn't help but wonder, what secrets lay hidden within these ancient boards? Could it be that deep inside the barn, where the dust of centuries had settled upon forgotten beams, there was something capable of transforming not only his life but the fate of the entire community? In recent years, Ethan's daily existence had grown into a heavy symphony of struggles against nature and the economic realities of modern life. Rising costs for agricultural equipment, unstable market prices for produce, and fierce competition from large agribusinesses had him dreaming of change more often than not. Yet, within his heart, a flame of perseverance, kindled by decades of toil on this land, still burned. Every stalk of wheat and every apple tree planted by his great-grandfather appeared to him as a living testament to a grand history that could never be discarded, along with dilapidated structures and rusty tools. In the evenings, as the sun sank low and the sky blazed with hues of crimson and gold, Ethan would sit on the veranda, pondering how much these lands meant to him. He remembered running as a child through sunlit meadows while listening to tales of ancient rituals performed by his ancestors, tales of how earth and sky, wind and rain, were inseparably intertwined in their lives. In those memories lay something far greater than mere stories. They held answers to eternal questions about the meaning of life and what truly mattered. Yet, one image troubled him above all, the old barn, which with each passing year seemed to lose its strength. Its wooden beams, now cloaked in moss and dust, began to yield to time, and the massive doors that once securely guarded its hidden secrets now creaked at the gentlest touch of the wind. Ethan knew that if nothing were done, these symbols of his family's might would eventually vanish forever, and the memory of his ancestors' great deeds would be lost. Still, every touch of that cold, time-worn wood filled him with an inexplicable excitement, a feeling that behind this dilapidated building lay something that could answer his most pressing questions about the modern world. One early autumn morning, as the world still slumbered under a gentle blanket of mist, Ethan, almost as if guided by an unseen force, approached the barn and paused before its massive doors. His eyes took in the details: peeling paint, faint marks of age, a layer of dust on the floor as if left by strangers' footsteps. In that moment, it seemed to him as though the building whispered, "Remember who you are. Remember where you came from." The echoes of distant voices stirred his memory of his father's bedtime stories about how great-grandfather Edmund had built the barn with love and faith in the future. With his heart pounding, his mind awash in a mixture of hope and apprehension, Ethan felt that perhaps destiny had something unexpected in store for him. His gaze wandered through the dark corners of the barn as he listened for the subtle sounds, faint knocks, rustling noises, that seemed to come from deep within, as if the very earth were trying to tell its story. Every detail, every sound, every shifting shadow promised that he stood on the threshold of a great discovery, one that might not only change his life but also alter the course of his family's legacy for generations to come. At that fateful moment, as the first golden rays of dawn slashed through the gaps in the ancient boards, Ethan Coldwell resolved, he could no longer remain ignorant. His soul, brimming with questions and an insatiable desire for answers, demanded action. He knew that behind the simple facade of the barn lay something far greater than an abandoned structure, perhaps the key to saving his family, a source of ancient wisdom that could ignite a new impulse in a long-forgotten tradition. Driven by an irresistible urge, Ethan cautiously approached the heavy door, his trembling hands barely restraining their quiver. Every step he took resonated deep within his soul, quickening his heartbeat and filling his thoughts with both hope and fear. Within him, two forces battled, the desire to preserve the memory of his forefathers and the fear of the unknown that might shatter the familiar order of life. Yet, in that moment, when the soft wind, seeping through the cracks in the aged boards, seemed to echo the voices of long-gone times, he realized it was time to act. Gathering all his resolve, Ethan slowly and deliberately pushed open the barn door. The creak that resounded through the empty corridors was like a call from another world, a summons promising to unveil the secrets of the past, long obscured by the dust of time and the clamor of modernity. In that instant, he felt as though Edmund Coldwell himself had reached out across space and time, guiding him along a path fraught with mysteries yet to be unraveled. The world around him fell silent, and time itself appeared to pause, yielding to the primal energy awakened by ancient memories and a hope for a brighter future. Standing at the threshold of this sacred repository of family history, Ethan Coldwell sensed that his life was about to enter a new, uncharted chapter. He did not know what secrets awaited him within the barn's depths, but his soul was ready to embrace whatever truth, bitter or sweet, destructive or inspiring, might be revealed. The winds of change were already blowing across his ancestral lands, and he felt that every movement, every sound, every shadow would become a piece of a grand mosaic where past and future interwove into a single whole. Thus, on that fateful day when the first rays of dawn cut through the darkness of oblivion, Ethan embarked on a journey destined to overturn the familiar, to unearth new facets of his family's legacy, and perhaps, to forever change the course of Coldwell's legacy. Though questions loomed large, questions that defied simple answers, he was prepared to plunge into the mysteries that had been concealed behind the dilapidated walls for centuries, to finally discover his truth and breathe new life into his ancestral soil. Standing on the barn's threshold, Ethan felt as if time itself had paused. His hands, marked by years of labor and hardship, trembled not from fear alone but from an overwhelming anticipation that defied words. Memories of his father's and grandfather's tales of how great-grandfather Edmund had raised these walls with love and conviction merged with the present moment, when every tree and every board seemed to come alive with the voices of those long past. The old, creaking doors, responding to the slightest caress of the wind, beckoned him to enter. Slowly, Ethan crossed the threshold, and he was immediately greeted by the dense scent of must and the aroma of ancient wood and earth seeping through the gaps in the walls. His eyes swept over the spacious, dim interior, a room where the floor, thick with layers of dust, scarcely remembered the footsteps of the living. Beneath his feet, the wooden planks groaned with the echo of days long gone. In the far corners of the barn, where the morning sun struggled to penetrate the cracks in the roof, vague silhouettes of old crates and chests, shrouded in cobwebs, began to appear. Every detail here seemed frozen in time, preserving not only the remnants of daily life but also subtle hints of events of great consequence from a long-forgotten era. Step by step, Ethan advanced, carefully examining every shelf, every pipe. All around him pulsed an energy from ages past. His eyes fixed upon a massive table at the center of the room, its surface cloaked in layers of dust and scattered fragments of old papers. On it lay yellowed pages bearing barely legible ink. At first, he assumed these were merely forgotten records, but as he drew nearer, an uncanny sense of presence grew. It was as though an invisible hand sought to draw his attention to these ancient marks, a message left long ago. His heart pounded as he gingerly lifted one of the old scrolls. The paper exuded the scent of time, and every line seemed to recount a story of experiments and bold research, so daring and risky that only the chosen few could have known their secrets. The script was adorned with strange symbols reminiscent of both ancient manuscripts and faint technological diagrams, almost imperceptible to the untrained eye. Each word and line sparked questions in him. What did these records conceal? Were they merely the outcome of agricultural experiments, or did they speak of a scientific breakthrough capable of redefining human potential? Immersed in studying these documents, Ethan barely noticed the cold wind drifting near his feet, a wind that seemed to pierce the room, as if the barn itself were coming to life after a long slumber. He shuddered, and his gaze returned to the window, through which scant light filtered. Outside, in the cool morning haze, the silhouettes of ancient trees appeared blurred, guardians of this forgotten corner of the world. The air was charged with an almost tangible energy, and in that moment, Ethan realized that the matter at hand extended far beyond the mere recovery of old papers. Continuing his search through the barn, he noticed something peculiar. Behind one of the roughly erected wooden partitions, barely visible beneath a thick layer of dust, there was an anomaly in the wall's pattern. Carefully lifting the remaining cladding, he discovered an intricate carving directly etched into the wood, a series of fanciful symbols that resembled an ancient cipher or code. These symbols pulsed in time with his heartbeat, awakening within him an instinctive sense that they guarded something far more significant than mere decoration. Perhaps, deep within this venerable structure, lay the key to a family secret that local legends had whispered about for generations. With every moment, Ethan became increasingly aware that the barn was not simply a relic of his hard-working ancestors but a veritable archive in which his family's history intertwined with enigmatic phenomena beyond conventional science and technology. He methodically studied the discovered records, cross-referencing them with childhood recollections. In one of the yellowed notebooks, he came across a mention of Project Phoenix, a strange title that seemed out of place in the simple chronicle of agricultural endeavors. The text described experiments conducted during the Great War by a group of scientists who attempted to develop technology capable of transforming energy and perhaps even extending life. These carefully penned lines stirred Ethan's imagination. Could it be that the humble farmer his great-grandfather was reputed to be had a secret involvement in groundbreaking scientific endeavors? Or was it simply a fanciful tale invented to inspire future generations? His heart pounded with the tension between a longing to return to a familiar world and an irresistible pull toward the mysteries his ancestors had concealed in this forsaken place. He understood that unlocking these secrets could not only change his personal destiny but also that of the local community, which had long languished in the shadows of change and oblivion. Yet, with each new discovery, a growing sense of unease took hold, for the deeper he delved into the past, the more clearly he saw that his investigations might soon attract the attention not only of curious neighbors but also of powerful individuals with the means to alter history in ways unimaginable. Suddenly, amid the silence of the underground chamber, a faint, almost imperceptible sound, like a soft whisper or a gentle knock, from a distant corner of the room made him pause. Ethan stopped and listened intently. The sound seemed both a call and a warning. Every cell in his body cried out that something important lay hidden behind that sound. With his pulse racing, he cautiously moved toward the source, careful not to make a single noise, as if fearing to awaken even deeper secrets concealed within these ancient walls. Reaching a far corner, he discovered an old wooden staircase leading downward, nearly hidden beneath mounds of relics. At first, he hesitated, aware that each step might be his last on this treacherous path, but curiosity and an insatiable thirst for truth triumphed over his doubts. Slowly, he descended the narrow steps, feeling the chill seeping to his bones and the air growing denser, as if the barn itself was determined to keep its ancient secret hidden. The lower level proved even more enigmatic than the upper hall. Here, the walls were inscribed with unfamiliar symbols, and the light from his lantern danced across wet stones, casting eerie shadows that blurred the line between reality and fantasy. Ethan discovered several metal chests, their surfaces corroded with rust, which seemed to hold documents and items of which he had never dreamed. One chest in particular, a large, imposing box secured with an antique lock, captured his attention. A shiver ran down his spine. Inside could be something that would overturn his understanding of the world. Approaching the chest, Ethan retrieved an old key from his pocket, a gift from his father, always carried as a reminder that time is an unyielding guardian of the past. The key, scarred by scratches and the marks of time, fit the lock perfectly, and after a few moments the creak of the lock's opening resonated like a signal heralding the start of a new era. Inside, he found a bundle of carefully arranged documents sealed in envelopes bearing no dates or signatures, only strange symbols and crests reminiscent of the emblems of long-lost noble houses. With mounting excitement, Ethan sifted through the papers, feeling that each word and sign opened up new horizons. Among the documents was an old map of the region, its markings hinting at the sites of past experiments and investigations. In one corner of a page, the words, Project Phoenix, appeared, penned in an elegant, almost calligraphic hand. Judging by the records, the project was dedicated to exploring alternative sources of energy, experimenting with materials that could alter the laws of physics, and even attempting to create a prototype device capable of manipulating gravity. The deeper Ethan plunged into these mysteries, the more evident it became that behind the humble facade of the farm lay something far more monumental than he could have imagined. Every line, every word evoked recollections of long conversations with his father, who had hinted that the family legacy was not solely about land and buildings but also a hidden secret passed down through generations. A secret capable of changing lives. Through the drip of water and the faint hum of ancient mechanisms, it seemed as if the very earth was trying to recount its story. Ethan realized that his journey had only just begun, that beyond the walls of this underground vault lay myriad enigmas whose answers could change not only his life but the entire world. He carefully gathered the documents, resolving to preserve every scrap that might shed light on these time-worn mysteries. A palpable sense of a powerful, ancient, almost mystical presence filled his soul with the resolve to press on, despite the fear of the unknown. Ethan understood that his life would never be the same. The secrets hidden within these walls, like ancient threads, wove his fate with that of his forebears, and in that forgotten subterranean world he stood at the threshold of a grand discovery, a discovery that might open the door to a completely different future. With that thought, Ethan rose, his eyes scanning the underground chamber as if trying to imprint every contour and crack in the stone. He knew that ahead lay not only new knowledge but also dangers that could jeopardize all he held dear. Yet his determination, bolstered by his ancestral legacy and his unwavering belief in a brighter future, propelled him forward. Thus, immersed in the atmosphere of ancient secrets and the echo of the past, Ethan took his first step toward the unknown, leaving behind the familiar world of the farm and embarking on a journey where every detail, every sound, and every whisper would serve as a clue to unraveling the great mystery. In the silence of oblivion, amid shadows of ages past, he was certain, the answers he sought lay just beyond the next turn, ready to open a new chapter in the history of his family, and perhaps to change the fate of an entire generation. Underscore 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 underscore. After a long descent into the depths of the underground corridors and the careful study of yellowed documents, Ethan felt not only a growing curiosity but also a rising sense of unease. He realized that the records, symbols, and ancient cipher were not mere fragments of a forgotten history but keys to mysteries capable of altering the fate of his family and the entire region. Convinced that it was time to cease deliberation, he began ascending the narrow wooden staircase leading out of the dark basement. With every step echoing through the quiet corridors of the barn, Ethan felt past and present merging into one. The upper level greeted him with a dim light filtering through gaps in the old planks and the heavy breath of a wind that had penetrated years of accumulated dust. The door he had opened to let in fresh air soon allowed the roar of the wind carrying droplets of rain and the cold sounds of an approaching storm. In that instant, the sky, which had seemed calm only minutes before, rapidly darkened. Massive thunderclouds gathered above Coldwell's legacy like harbingers of momentous change. Lightning flashed across the horizon, illuminating the ancient walls of the farm and casting eerie, dancing shadows over the smooth surfaces of the barn. The wind, growing stronger by the moment, whipped across the courtyard, making the old beams tremble and the wooden planks creak as if the ancestors themselves were trying to warn Ethan of the impending tempest. Sensing nature's overwhelming force upon his ancestral land, Ethan quickly grabbed the bag containing the documents he had carefully stored in the underground archive and stepped outside to assess the situation. At that moment, his eyes caught sight of a fleeting silhouette at the barn's doorway. Barely visible in the driving rain, this figure appeared as if carved from the mist, its form cloaked by a hood and its face concealed by a dark scarf. The stranger moved with measured, assured steps, as though he knew far more than he would reveal. Ethan's heart skipped a beat when the stranger, in a quiet yet clear voice, declared, Your search has begun. The time for change is at hand. The legacy of your bloodline is not just forgotten papers, it is the key to the future, capable of saving us from an impending catastrophe. Those words, resonating like distant prophecies, penetrated deep into his soul. In an instant, the medallion the stranger held in his outstretched hand flashed with a shimmering light from the lightning. This small object, crafted from dark metal and adorned with mysterious symbols, reminded Ethan of those he had just seen carved into the walls of the underground chamber. A chill ran down his spine, and in that moment all his internal doubts and fears were replaced by a newfound resolve, a readiness to accept fate's challenge. Clutching the medallion tightly, Ethan searched the stranger's eyes, trying to discern his intent. The stranger, as if reading the young farmer's thoughts, merely nodded silently before vanishing into the night, dissolving into the turbulent rain and wind. Left alone on the threshold, Ethan's mind raced with questions. Who was this man? How did he know about the documents and Project Phoenix mentioned in the ancient scroll? And what did the symbols etched on the medallion mean? The storm outside did not abate, if anything, it grew even more fierce. The wind roared across the courtyard, its sound merging with the voice of destiny, and every flash of lightning seemed to signal the start of a new era. Ethan swiftly closed the barn door, seeking shelter from the tempest, yet inside him boiled the conviction that something far greater than a mere natural storm was unfolding. Returning to one of the small rooms where his great-grandfather had once conducted experiments, Ethan sat in an antique armchair and set a lantern on the table. His eyes drifted over the documents, records, and old photographs capturing moments from a long-gone era. Each detail revived memories of the stories he had heard in childhood about the courage and wisdom of ancestors willing to sacrifice everything for the sake of knowledge. But now a new dilemma presented itself: how to use this inherited legacy to save the future without severing the ties to the past. While the storm outside continued its relentless roar, the room fell into a quiet hush, broken only by the sound of rain tapping on the old windowpanes. Ethan began to sift through the documents, trying to trace a logical sequence that might explain the appearance of the medallion and the stranger's mysterious words. One page contained a record, written in neat handwriting, that mentioned an experiment conducted under the code name Phoenix. The entry claimed that the goal of the project was to create a device capable of transforming energy and perhaps even manipulating the fundamental forces of nature. These words echoed the very mysteries now embodied in the enigmatic medallion and the voice carried on the storm's winds. With his heart pounding, Ethan realized that a difficult path lay ahead, one filled with peril and uncertainty. The legacy of his bloodline was far more complex and layered than a simple farming life. It concealed a potent force that could overturn the very foundations of the known world. His mind filled with images of himself not merely as the guardian of family secrets but as a participant in a great scientific revolution, where ancient knowledge and modern technology converged into a single force. Suddenly, in the silence of the room, a sharp knock resounded at the door. Sensing that every new event was drawing him closer to the truth, Ethan rose and slowly approached the massive door that had long remained unused. His hand, trembling with anticipation, reached for the knob, and he opened the door to see what awaited him outside. In the swirling rain and darkness stood a figure in a dark overcoat, the face hidden beneath a wide hood. The figure paused at the threshold, as if waiting for Ethan to take the first step. Without a word, the stranger handed Ethan a small envelope, sealed with an insignia reminiscent of an ancient family crest. Ethan accepted it, and before he could ask a single question, the figure melted away into the night. Feeling the envelope warm in his hand, and clutching the medallion even tighter, he understood: every message was a sign, every word a piece of an enormous puzzle whose solution might not only save his ancestral lands but also open a gateway to a future where ancient mysteries played a decisive role. Sitting back at the table, Ethan carefully unsealed the envelope. Inside was a single page with the inscription: Coldwell's legacy is not merely a memory of the past, it is a call to action. Follow the signs hidden in the heart of the farm, and you will find the truth capable of resurrecting forgotten knowledge and returning light to dark times. These words, like a cryptic key, filled him with determination. He realized that every artifact he had found, every detail, was significant in this intricate game of fate. As it turned out, his great-grandfather had left not only an expansive homestead but also a network of encoded instructions and riddles whose answers might unlock unimaginable possibilities. Outside, the storm still raged, and every strike of lightning echoed the relentless power of change. Clutching the medallion and the envelope, Ethan felt his connection to the land grow ever stronger and the voices of his ancestors ring out more clearly. He understood that the choice he was about to make might bring either a hopeful light or unavoidable danger. But at that moment, he could not turn back. His path was set, and ahead lay new challenges that would demand courage, wisdom, and unwavering belief that even in the darkest storm an ember of light could illuminate the way. Taking a deep breath of the rain-scented air, Ethan decided it was time to act. He carefully gathered all the documents, the medallion, and the envelope, placing them in a secure spot where he could study them in peace. Yet the thought of the stranger and his message lingered, each raindrop pattering on the barn's roof reminding him that time was relentless and change was already upon him. In the dimly lit room, Ethan began to ponder, what forces lay behind this mysterious message? Were they connected to the long-abandoned experiments of the Great War era, or were they modern agents eager to seize ancient knowledge for their own ends? The answers remained shrouded in mystery, but one thing was clear: the land of his ancestors held the keys to great transformations, and he had to do everything in his power to keep them out of the wrong hands. As the storm gradually subsided, leaving only the echoes of thunder and the whistle of the wind, Ethan contemplated the coming day. The morning sun promised clarity and a fresh perspective on the events of the previous night. He knew it was time to act decisively and not delay his search any longer. The medallion he held was not just a symbol of his heritage but a beacon of hope for reviving lost knowledge. Taking responsibility for the future of his bloodline, Ethan vowed that no danger would stop him from unraveling the riddles hidden in the silence of centuries. His decision was firm: he would follow the trail left by his great-grandfather and find every sign that pointed the way to truth. Even if insurmountable obstacles lay ahead, he would not retreat. And so, when the last sounds of the storm faded and the first rays of dawn began to pierce through the clouds, Ethan stepped out of the barn. His hands, still trembling from the cold yet filled with determination, and his eyes fixed on the future, testified that a new chapter in the history of the Coldwells was about to begin, a chapter where ancient secrets and modern trials merged into one force, capable of changing destinies. On the threshold of the farm, he paused, gazing over the majestic fields glistening with dew, feeling the resurgence of nature's power. In that moment, it seemed as though the earth itself was ready to tell its story, if only he could listen correctly. Every blade of grass, every stone, reminded him of monumental events from the past and hinted that many more discoveries awaited him. With a renewed sense of hope and unyielding resolve, Ethan took the first step on a path that promised to bring him closer to uncovering the greatest mystery of his bloodline, the secret of Project Phoenix, a power capable of transforming not only his destiny but the future of all mankind. With each beat of his heart and every breath of fresh morning air, he felt the call of his ancestors, a soft yet insistent summons to a realm where past and future merged into one. And so, standing at the dawn of a new day, Ethan made his decision. He would not stop until he had unraveled every mystery, until he knew how the ancient wisdom of his forefathers might save his family's land, and perhaps even the world. He understood that ahead lay hardships, challenges, and encounters with those who guarded these secrets as zealously as he did. Yet now, his soul was filled with light and faith, convinced that every discovery, every mystery solved, would bring him closer to a great truth. With that resolve, Ethan stepped onto the stone path paved with memories and ancient relics, confident that every clue, every symbol, and every line of those old diaries was a part of an overarching plan predestined by his lineage. Coldwell's legacy was no longer just a family relic, it was a living reminder that no matter how hidden knowledge might be, it will always find its way into the light if one's heart is willing to heed its call. As the first glimmers of morning light returned, Ethan left the house where, only the previous day, he had studied the recovered artifacts with rapt attention, and once again set out on his journey. He had resolved to follow the trail marked on an ancient map carved into a stone structure in the old garden. The forest into which he ventured appeared vast and almost mystical, a realm where time seemed suspended and every shadow could conceal secrets of bygone eras. Walking along a narrow path covered in a thick layer of moss and fallen leaves, Ethan felt the chill of the morning dew mingle with a thrill of anticipation. Tall trees arched overhead, forming a canopy through which the early sun's rays barely penetrated. Every rustle of leaves, every soft murmur of a brook, every droplet tapping on the bark of trees resonated in his soul like an ancient incantation, beckoning him toward new revelations. Without warning, the path led him to a small clearing where nature itself seemed to have pulled back the veil on its mysteries. In the center of the clearing stood a circle of ancient stones, encrusted with lichen and moss, bearing indecipherable marks carved into their rough surfaces. The stone circle appeared to breathe, pulsing with the rhythm of eternity, and amid those stones, Ethan sensed the presence of something otherworldly. Standing nearby, he felt the air thicken, as if saturated with the energy of bygone centuries. In the stillness, punctuated only by the whisper of the wind and distant birdsong, he heard the faint echo of voices emanating from deep within the circle. It was difficult to discern their exact source, but the sound felt at once like a call and a warning. Slowly, emerging from the darkness of the stone circle, a figure appeared. Draped in a long cloak that concealed every feature of his face, the figure moved with an otherworldly grace, as if the night itself had come to life and stepped forth. Ethan's heart pounded faster, and his mind swirled with a mix of fear and curiosity. He stepped forward, gathering all his courage, and in a quiet voice he asked, "Who are you? What force is awakening here?" For a moment, the figure stood silent, as if the entire world held its breath. Then, a deep, resonant voice echoed among the ancient stones. "I am the guardian of oblivion, and I am here to warn you, Ethan. Your quest, begun by your forefathers, has already stirred forces that are not always kind to mortals." The guardian's words, sounding both as an ancient prophecy and a stark warning, sent shivers through Ethan's very being. He struggled to comprehend them while recalling the documents, the medallion, and the runic inscriptions that now appeared not as random marks but as carefully crafted symbols pointing toward a great mystery. "Why me?" Ethan asked, trying to mask his uncertainty despite the tremor in his voice. "Because fate has chosen you," the guardian replied, his tone softening yet retaining a firm inevitability. "Your ancestors forged a covenant with the earth," he continued, leaving behind here a key to a force that can both create and destroy. But that force demands a pure heart and courageous spirit. Only one who sincerely seeks the truth may pass the trial that awaits beyond this circle. Listening to every word, Ethan felt a flame of resolve ignite within him. His mind flashed back to childhood legends, stories passed down from generation to generation that spoke of knowledge that demands sacrifice. And now, standing on the threshold between the familiar and the unknown, he knew he had a choice: to turn back and preserve the comfort of what he knew, or to press onward, regardless of the perils. Before he could finish his thoughts, he noticed that faintly glowing symbols began to shimmer on one of the stones, emitting a soft bluish light. The marks pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat, as though the very earth were reaching out to him through this ancient script. He moved closer, extended his hand, and touched the cool stone. In that instant, a surge of energy coursed through him, as if nature itself were bestowing a fragment of its power. Images flashed before his eyes, faces of ancestors, ancient rituals, and the sound of winds carrying the memory of millennia. "Your path is intertwined with the destinies of many," the guardian's voice resonated again, this time seeming to emanate from Ethan's very heart. "If you are truly ready, venture beyond this circle. There, deep within the forest, lie trials that will test your faith, strength, and wisdom. But remember, not every mystery brings light, and not every truth heals. Some knowledge, if unrestrained, can only unleash chaos." Feeling every word stir his resolve, Ethan softly declared, "I am ready to face my shadow. Let the secrets hidden in my ancestors' legacy be revealed to me, even if the cost is high." As his words echoed over the clearing, the symbols on the stones blazed even brighter, bathing the area in a soft, almost hypnotic glow. This light seemed to reveal a narrow path, barely visible beneath the dense foliage, a pathway leading deeper into the forest. Ethan sensed his soul fill with fresh energy and his mind clear and resolute. He understood that from now on his journey would be filled with unforeseen trials and riddles, where each new secret might either be a source of strength or the harbinger of his downfall. Leaving behind the ancient stone circle, Ethan followed the illuminated path. Around him, the forest came alive, a gentle breeze whispered in an unfamiliar tongue, birds began their morning chorus, and sunbeams pierced the dense canopy, casting playful patterns of light and shadow upon the forest floor. Yet even in this majestic interplay of nature, he could feel the presence of those mysterious forces the guardian had warned him about. Every step took effort, as though the forest itself was testing his resolve. Sometimes, it seemed as if unseen eyes watched him from around the corner, but when he turned, he saw only fleeting shadows and the quiet movements of the wind. Perhaps these sensations were merely the product of his imagination intertwined with ancient premonitions, but they would not let him rest. Winding through overgrown ruins and relics of ancient structures, Ethan paused repeatedly to inspect the signs and runic inscriptions etched on the crumbling remnants. Each inscription seemed to recount a tale of a powerful force embedded in this land, of ancestral vows, of a fusion between nature and science. His mind filled with visions of times when the earth was young and wild, when people could listen to the voice of the wind and understand the language of stone. After what seemed an eternity, Ethan reached a small clearing amid the ruins, where an entirely different structure stood before him, a forgotten edifice resembling an ancient observatory or a ritual hall. Its stone columns, adorned with carved symbols, testified that people once gathered here in pursuit of the world's mysteries. At the center of the hall stood an altar intricately carved, and as if meant especially for him, on the altar lay a small, exquisitely crafted amulet, its delicate patterns resonating with the medallion he already wore. Approaching to examine the amulet, Ethan was suddenly enveloped by a warm, radiant light. In that instant, he heard a soft, almost imperceptible whisper, as though the voices of ancient ones had united to impart the fate of his bloodline. In that murmuring, words were discernible, understandable only to his heart. Truth lies where the past meets the future. Accept this gift, and you shall gain the power to change destiny. Carefully, Ethan lifted the amulet, feeling the energy within it seep into his skin and bones, as though the very spirit of his forebears were granting him a shard of their wisdom. At that moment, his mind filled with visions, flashes of ancient rituals, struggles to preserve forbidden knowledge, the revival of lost traditions. Each vision left behind a faint trace of sorrow and a sense of solemn grandeur, making him contemplate how thin the line is between creation and destruction. Deep within, Ethan realized, his journey was only beginning, and many trials still lay ahead. Every new mystery, every artifact he uncovered, was not merely a fragment of a puzzle but a vital piece of a grand mosaic that, when assembled, would illuminate the true nature of his family's legacy. He understood that he would face many more challenges, encounter those who guarded the secrets of this land, and perhaps be forced to make great sacrifices in the name of a higher cause. Leaving the observatory, Ethan turned back toward the forest path, where the light was gradually giving way to mysterious shadows. In his soul, the call of his ancestors resounded, a reminder that true knowledge is born from trial, and that every ancient path leads to a cherished destiny. With the amulet securely clenched in his hand and the medallion still pulsing at his throat, he stepped forward, resolute. There was no turning back. He had chosen his path, and his life was now devoted to seeking the truth hidden in the shadows of the past. Thus, as the sounds of the approaching day stirred in the quiet of the ancient forest, Ethan Coldwell continued his journey. His heart burned with determination, and the voices of his forefathers, both cautionary and inspiring, echoed within his soul. He knew that only by overcoming every trial would he unlock the full power of the legacy bestowed upon him, and perhaps change not only his own fate but that of the entire land. Deep in the forest, amid the murmur of the winds and the awakening chorus of nature, Ethan understood that his quest was only beginning. Every new path, every symbol encountered, and every trial he faced brought him closer to unraveling the grand mystery of Project Phoenix, a force capable of transforming the world forever. He felt that by embracing his inner darkness, he had attained the strength to not only preserve his family's heritage but also to breathe new life into the land, a life filled with light and wisdom. And so, surrounded by the natural symphony and the ancient stone walls of the sacred sanctuary, Ethan Coldwell took yet another step toward his destiny, a step toward the truth he was meant to carry into the world. His trial of the soul had become a symbol of transformation, a testament that even in the deepest shadows a light can emerge, if one's heart is brave enough to answer its call. Underscore 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 underscore. After his profound trial in the ancient sanctuary, when Ethan Coldwell felt his inner world transformed and filled with light, the time had come for a fateful awakening. The forest around him now seemed like a living organism, one that revealed its secrets to those who truly listened. Every dewdrop and every rustle of the branches appeared as signs, guiding him toward the path where his newfound power was destined to be put to use. As he made his way toward the ancient sanctuary, Ethan noticed that nature itself was changing. The air grew richer, the sounds of the forest took on a magical quality, and the ground beneath his feet seemed to pulse with energy. He trod along a path that, once barely discernible in the dim twilight, now unfurled before him like an ancient map, traced by the energy of his ancestors. The medallion around his neck and the amulet in his hand were no longer mere artifacts, they were genuine keys, unlocking the hidden reservoirs of power lying dormant in the very earth. Before long, Ethan reached a small clearing surrounded by towering pines and firs, where the ground was inscribed with ancient runes, marks naturally etched by time. It was here, amid stones and soft moss, that his heart resonated with echoes of the past. He remembered his grandfather's tales of how his forefathers communed with the spirits of nature, drawing strength from the earth to protect their lineage and preserve their wisdom. These stories, once dismissed as mere fables, now revealed a profound truth after his trial of the soul. Falling to his knees on the cool earth, Ethan carefully laid out the artifacts he had gathered, documents, the medallion, and the amulet. Closing his eyes, he allowed his thoughts to drift into the realm of his ancestors. In that silent moment, the very nature around him seemed to pause, and a deep, resonant hum rose from the ground, as if the earth itself were responding to his silent plea. In his mind's eye, vivid images ignited, ancestors clad in cloaks gathered around a sacred fire, intoning ancient incantations while their faces shone with wisdom and unwavering determination. It was a vision of a great ritual in which earth and sky merged into one, bestowing power upon the chosen. Suddenly, from deep within the clearing, a column of radiant light emerged, emanating from an unseen source yet directed squarely at his heart. Ethan felt a surge of energy streaming into his body, filling every cell with renewed purpose and strength. The light seeped through every fiber of his being, dissolving the doubts and fears that had long held him captive. In that moment, he understood, his ancestors had not merely left behind the secrets of ancient technologies or forgotten rituals, they had bestowed upon him the very ability to awaken a power capable of transforming the world, healing wounds, and reviving long-dormant wisdom. Under the influence of that brilliant light, Ethan rose as if reborn. He sensed his thoughts clearing, his body charged with fresh vigor, and his soul filled with a steadfast resolve to go all the way. In his mind, the words of his forefathers echoed, "Only he who dares to embrace both light and darkness can change the fate of the world." This mantra became his guiding star. He knew that the power he had now acquired was meant to be used for the greater good, for protecting his ancestral land, for preserving ancient knowledge, and for awakening the spirit of the past in the present. Ethan's awakening coincided with a change in the external world. The sky, once shrouded in storm clouds, gradually brightened, and the first rays of sunlight broke through the treetops, illuminating his path. In the distance, he heard the murmurs of human voices, perhaps local villagers or even officials drawn by the strange happenings in the forest. But for Ethan, these sounds were not a cause for alarm, rather, they signaled that his mission was expanding beyond a personal quest. A thought emerged in his mind: it was time to revive the power granted by his ancestors, to bring it back to life, not only to protect the family land but also to aid the entire community that had long dwelled in the shadow of oblivion. He understood that the ancient knowledge enshrined in these rituals and symbols was meant to be passed on, a foundation for a new era where technology and nature coexisted in harmony. With that understanding, Ethan rose and, placing one determined foot in front of the other, continued along the path marked by light and ancient signs. Step by step, he advanced toward the center of the clearing, where the ground sparkled with dewdrops that reflected his renewed vision. He laid his hand upon a massive stone adorned with intricate carvings and felt a wave of energy ripple through his body, like the surge of an ocean tide. This moment marked the transition from inner awakening to action, from the realization of his power to its embodiment. He had become a living conduit of ancient wisdom, destined to awaken the latent reserves of nature and to bridge the gap between past and future. At that very moment, a deep, resonant hum filled the sky, a sound reminiscent of ancient echoes, and for an instant, the faces of his ancestors appeared before him, their expressions alight with gratitude and pride. He felt their energy infusing him, their will guiding him beyond the confines of ordinary perception. That was the turning point. Ethan Coldwell had accepted his destiny, emerging as the guardian of a force capable of transforming not only his family's land but also the lives of all who believed in ancient wisdom. With this new power surging within him, he took a decisive step forward, venturing toward the unknown trails of the forest, where further challenges and revelations awaited. His heart beat in rhythm with the pulsating energy of nature, and his mind was clear and resolute. Ethan understood that his journey was now determined not solely by personal ambition but by the eternal covenant of his forefathers, to preserve and revive ancient knowledge so that it might be passed on to future generations. Thus, accompanied by the natural symphony and the gentle radiance of a new day, Ethan Coldwell emerged as a symbol of renewal, a man capable of uniting light and darkness, ancient and modern, transforming his family's legacy into a living force that could change the world. His awakening heralded the dawn of a new era in which earth, science, and spirit merged in a single, impassioned drive toward a brighter future. Ethan's newfound power opened up endless horizons. Realizing his mission was no longer just a personal quest to uncover ancient secrets but a responsibility for the fate of his ancestral land and the entire region, a vision took root in his soul: to preserve his forefathers' legacy, to integrate ancient wisdom with modern technology, and perhaps even to usher in a new era of harmony between humanity and nature. Returning to his family farm, Ethan sensed the land itself coming back to life under his footsteps. The fields, nurtured for generations, seemed infused with a fresh breath, and the old buildings, the silent custodians of age-old secrets, began to radiate a mysterious, warm glow. It was here, at the crossroads of past and future, that he resolved to make his dream a reality. The farm, once only a source of sustenance and family history, was destined to become a center of knowledge where ancient rituals and contemporary research merged in a unified pursuit of truth. Ethan gathered his closest allies, people he trusted, who shared his belief in the power of nature. Among them were scientists, historians, ecological experts, and even skilled artisans adept at working with ancient materials. Together, they set about restoring the old barn, transforming it into a laboratory and library where books and relics discovered in the depths of the forest and underground chambers would be preserved. Every artifact, be it an ancient map, a mysterious scroll, or a mechanical device, was given its rightful place, each becoming part of a grand plan to revive lost wisdom. Empowered by his renewed strength and bolstered by the wisdom of his ancestors, Ethan became a guiding light. He began holding public lectures and gatherings, sharing how ancient traditions could seamlessly blend with modern technology. His talks drew crowds. People who once saw him merely as a farmer now recognized him as the guardian of a great secret. Ethan spoke of how true knowledge is born at the intersection of the past and the future, and that only by embracing both light and darkness within can one find the path to genuine harmony. At the same time, Ethan's efforts soon attracted the attention of local authorities and the scientific community. Representatives of the state and potential investors, intrigued by the mysterious discoveries on Coldwell's land, began to offer partnerships. But Ethan would not succumb to external pressures. He understood that the legacy of his forefathers was not something to be bought or sold. His purpose was to preserve this ancient wisdom and pass it on to future generations, not to exploit it for personal gain. Day by day, the farm transformed. The old buildings were restored, modern laboratories were installed, and the fields adopted eco-friendly farming techniques rooted in ancient traditions. Ethan watched with pride as his family's land, once nearly forgotten, blossomed into a symbol of new beginnings, a place where technology and nature worked in harmony, where anyone could touch upon the profound wisdom of the past and discover a path toward a luminous future. Soon, a research center was established on the farm, aptly named Phoenix Legacy, in honor of the ancient project mentioned in the records, a symbol of rebirth from the ashes. The center became a meeting place for scientists, historians, and artisans, a hub where not only ancient technologies were studied but also the underlying principles of perpetual renewal. Experiments were conducted to harness energy from nature, methods for ecosystem restoration were developed, and new educational initiatives were launched that wove ancient wisdom with modern knowledge. Having become the keeper of this ancient power, Ethan actively participated in these projects. His personal transformation, ignited in the forest and in that sacred sanctuary, inspired others. He often declared, "True legacy isn't measured by material wealth. It lives in our hearts, in our connection to the earth, in what we are willing to pass on to future generations." His words resonated deeply, and soon Coldwell's farm evolved into a bastion of new thinking, a place where antiquity and modernity walked hand in hand. Gradually, it became evident that the future depended on harmony with nature. Ethan initiated projects to restore local ecosystems, to develop sustainable technologies, and even organized educational programs for the youth. Young people flocked to the farm to learn, work, and absorb the knowledge passed not only from books but from living, breathing contact with the land and the keepers of ancient traditions. Everyone who crossed the threshold of Phoenix Legacy felt a unique atmosphere, where the past met the future, and every spark of light could dispel the darkness of ignorance. Yet, Ethan never lost sight of his personal journey. He frequently returned to the very places where he had undergone his soul's trial, where ancient forces had awakened his ability to perceive truth. In the quiet of the forest paths, he would once again hear the voices of his ancestors, reminding him that every encounter, every trial, was part of a grand journey toward unity and harmony. He understood that his mission would never truly end, for knowledge is an eternal process, always leaving room for new discoveries and achievements. The saga reached its crescendo with a grand festival held on his ancestral land. Villagers, scholars, investors, and ordinary folk gathered to celebrate the revival of ancient traditions and the dawn of a new era. In the main square, adorned with age-old symbols, an exhibition showcased artifacts that Ethan had unearthed from the forest and underground chambers, each piece telling its own story, each inscription echoing a timeless pledge passed down through the ages. Speeches, demonstrations, and lectures created an atmosphere of unity where past and future melded into one, instilling hope for a better tomorrow. That day, standing on the stage before the assembled crowd, Ethan spoke words that would be remembered for generations. "We are the keepers of the ancient flame passed down by our forebears. This flame is not merely a symbol of the past, it holds a power capable of transforming the future. Let our knowledge, our love for the land, and our commitment to harmony become the bridge between eras. Together, we will create a world where light and darkness, science and nature, tradition and innovation live as one, bringing life and hope to every soul." His words resonated deeply with the audience. People realized that the time for change had come, a time when ancient heritage could live anew in each of us, when the past could serve as the foundation for a future filled with light, knowledge, and love. The festival became a symbol of a new beginning, a launching pad for projects that would not only preserve but also amplify the power of ancient traditions for the benefit of all. Thus ended the journey of Ethan Coldwell, a journey from a simple farmer to the true guardian of ancient wisdom, a man capable of uniting time, space, and human hearts in a quest for a radiant future. His legacy, transformed into a living force, stood as a testament to how ancient secrets can bring not destruction but renewal, how by embracing our darkness we can find the light and make the world a better place. With this triumph over both internal and external trials, Ethan realized that the great knowledge and power bestowed upon us are not meant for destruction but for creation. His farm, now transformed into a state-of-the-art research and educational center, became a place where everyone could find answers to the questions that stir the soul and discover the path to eternal light. Coldwell's legacy now lived in the hearts of people, a bridge between past and future, a symbol that true knowledge is a power capable of transforming not just one life, but the world. And so, under the gentle light of a new day and surrounded by those who believed in the wonder of ancient secrets, Ethan Coldwell closed one chapter of his journey to open another, a chapter filled with hope, wisdom, and an endless quest for harmony. His story became a legend that would be passed down through the generations, a testament that even in the deepest shadows, light can be born when the heart is willing to heed its call.